let's move into the final module. And this is earnouts and the way that you as the business owner who's now selling their business can still receive value in the future. And by value, I mean payments for that which you've created. So to start with this part, let me start with you, Steve. What right do I have as a business owner to future payments once I've sold? I've got to negotiate all this, don't I?
You have to negotiate it. That's correct. So an earnout is typically tied, again, earnout, as Adam said, is additional purchase price that's payable by the buyer post-closing based on the business hitting some matrix, maybe getting a material contract, obtaining a patent or a permit. But more often than not, 90% of the time, it's tied to hitting some financial threshold, some minimum EBITDA or additional EBITDA after 1 year or after 2 years. So it's contingent purchase price.
Sean, wouldn't you just prefer to be one and done, buy a business and not to have to negotiate this next part of it?
Yeah, it used to be the case, and again, I'm dating myself, 10 to 15 years ago, where you'd want the earnout to be no more than 2 years for your client, and then no more in terms of the overall purchase price of maybe 10% or 15%, just as little as possible. That's not always the case. I mean, a lot of times you'll have situations where, especially for a family business, you want to have the family legacy preserved. So maybe you want an earnout of 5 years so you can actually see how the transition's going. And also, if there's a big growth potential, you want to participate in that. So it could be a metric of EBITDA, it could be an industry metric, but yeah, it's changed quite a bit.
John, what are the prevalence in terms of earnout provisions? As a business owner, or rather as an investor, I would be concerned of a business owner who, one, has claim to future earnout, but might want to, I don't know the right word here, but interfere with the operation once the business has been sold.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think the way that I think of earnouts is it's just a good way to align the interests in the asymmetries that may exist in information between the buyer and the seller. So obviously, the person who's typically selling the business by virtue of controlling it and probably controlling it, over the course of a number of years, probably just has better information than the buyer. So I think it's a way to solve for that. And I think it's a good way just to align interests as well, as you mentioned. If the business, especially if it's in a business that has revenue that is more lumpy in nature, where you can get a big contract and it makes a big difference in the profitability of the company. I think it's just kind of a fair way to strike a deal for the buyer and the seller.
Lami, when you're advising, your side of this, the seller going forward, what is it you point out to them? Because I can't imagine there's a standard one size fits all.
That's very true. It really depends on the motivations for the deal. I think I echo everyone else's comments. From my perspective, it's really a way for the business owner to capture the upside of all, they've pretty much put so much work in it since they started the business, and now it's time to let it go. But there are instances where you have the owners, they still want to be a part of the company. This is a great way to incentivize them, having an earnout, and align the interests, as John mentioned. So it really depends on if the owner or the seller wants to be involved, post closing. So you could roll over the equity, you could have earnouts. There's so many ways to structure it. So I try to kind of guide them on the different options that they have, and also the deal size matters. And that's kind of what determines the earnouts too, and the metrics that go along with it.
Stephen, I see you nodding your head again. Are there pitfalls?
Oh yeah, there are pitfalls. The issue is on an earnout, how difficult is it to, figure out what the EBITDA is for the business that was purchased, right? So if a private equity forms a new co that just takes your existing business, perhaps taking the management team, that seems pretty easy, right? But if you had a strategic buyer who is a competitor, who's picking it up for symmetry, and there's some competing products and overlay, it may be more difficult because there's going to be allocations of overhead. So it's really important you work with the accountants to come up with a very clear discussion or formulation of the EBITDA number. It'll be an adjusted EBITDA because there'll be various things you need to back out relative to perhaps internal sales, that may be done at cost. You want to have those marked up. So there's just a slew of negotiation that goes around that type of earnout.
James, I would imagine your firm has dealt with that issue of, essentially negotiating the threshold on which the earnout's going to be based.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two types. If you're a seller and the buyer is focused on the intellectual property that your IT delivers, you have a differentiated IT system that, in essence, they're buying your company because you do something through technology like no one else can. That's one flavor of agreement. Some acquisitions, the acquiring company knows the IT of the company they're buying is not worth the powder to blow it to hell. It's less important. They know that their IT systems, the buyers, will be taking over and rolled in. As Steve said, that's a simple acquisition. They're going to roll it into one of their portfolio companies. IT is less important.
John, have you ever been at this stage of the negotiation to have a deal not closed because of disagreement over earnout?
You know what? I personally have never had that happen, but I'm sure it probably has happened before. It might be a better question for Stephen. He's probably seen more of these than I have. But I will say it's something that's really crucial, and it's something that certainly could blow up a deal, especially just depending on the nature of the business. But it's always important to make sure interests and information alignment is there between the buyer and the seller, and just really no better way to do that than with the earnout provision.
Sean, you're on deck for a question I'm going to ask you, but I want Stephen to follow up on what John just said. Has this been a roadblock to closing a deal?
It could be a roadblock to a buyer getting the deal. In an auction process, when you're evaluating bids that came in for the business, you may have a total value, which is inclusive of the earnout, higher than a buyer who's saying, I'll pay you, $10. So would you rather get $9 up front plus $5 of earnout, or would you rather get $10 cash, on the barrelhead at closing? So I'm sure, and I know that there have been buyers who have lost, even though there may have been incremental bit higher value, but the seller said, you know what, I'll take the bird in the hand. I can live with that. I don't want to deal with having to go through an earnout. Flip side, don't get shy on earnouts, because I have clients who've rolled in earnouts and just it worked great. So, it's really do your diligence, and if you're comfortable with your buyer and the management team and their vision, then by all means, that may be a really positive thing for you.
Sean, I know you touched upon this in the first question I asked you, but once again, what advice would you give to the seller at this stage of the negotiation when we're talking about the earnout?
Just do an honest assessment in terms of what they want to get out of it. One of the aspects of when you get to this stage of the negotiations is a huge commitment of time has been made. We're talking months and months of work and legal fees and fees associated with the advisors. Do you really want to blow it up over this? I mean, is it really that necessary? And to John's point, I've never seen anyone really walk away on this. I've actually seen people say, look, we're so committed, we're down the path here. Let's try and figure this out.
I'm going to say thank you. I appreciate all of you being here. And remember, this is just the first of several in a series that are going to take place this year on private equity. And we look forward to seeing you all again. So I'll see you there.